Hello and welcome to week 5 of the saturation sew along. This week we're joining this section and the section here onto our main block to complete each of the blocks. Now we've already joined some sections, joining this to this. Now we're going to join these ones. Now I haven't trimmed the fabric short here, and I just wanted to show how I join them. So I'm pin heavy. I know some of you aren't, but I always am. So I'm going to go straight through that point, check here that it's right on that seam, and I will always start with this junction first, here. Now it doesn't look like it lines up, and it doesn't. If you look here, it's slightly off. Now what I will say is with this pattern, it's amazing what being slightly off can actually do. So if you see here, this is still off. I would say that would actually make a difference. And basically it makes a difference because when you open it, you might have either more of an overlap or less of an overlap, but it's exacerbated by the angles that these are at, so it becomes more obvious. Doesn't mean it's difficult, it just means you have to be a little bit more cautious. So I've now done that one with my locator pin, so I'll put a little clip next to it. I will go next down the run, and I'm going to assume that these are lining up. So I'm going to push it straight through there, then I'm going to double check on this side. Now because I've been pressing the seams open, I've missed it, and I can tell that I've missed it. The other thing I will always do is not just check on the back, but I will check in between. So you can see here I've missed it, not by a huge amount, just here. I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but I can just see my line from the template there as well. So I'll line that up. Now it looks a bit wobbly, it doesn't kind of look like it necessarily lines up, but the answer is that when you're holding it taut, it does. So I'll just put a couple more clips in here. Now I'm doing this last bit across to this point here. So because this one I've not trimmed the paper, the fabric, I will go for this corner first. Oh well, kind of got it bang on. Pretty much I'm going to just tweak it to there. But then what I will do is I'll hold this taut, it fits, and I will take a second pin and just go for the middle of the line somewhere. Check that we're on the line on the other side, which we are. So I will now just clip those. Lastly, I go back to this corner. Hopefully it will line up, but let's see. It's slightly off. I will readjust because that's the type of person I am, but don't feel you have to if you don't want to. This will mostly get lost in the seams, but it's also, you're going to be lining up, you know, this mirror image here. So I think it's always worth it to put the time in. Now I'll clip that. So that's the first one lined up. As you can see, I will now sew that. Just to show you me sewing it, this is how I work. Take the clips off as I go. Push these pins through, but hold them vertical. Get to this point, take it out. Take this clip off. So I always lock stitch at this stage because I don't want any of these blocks coming apart halfway through sewing the whole lot together. So I will open it up and check. I would say that's pretty much on, and that again, sometimes when you open them initially they look a bit off, but then they look better once you have pressed the seams to the side. Don't know if you can see that's like perfect there, but if I hold that together it doesn't look quite as good that way. So I will trim and press this open and I will do the next section. So to continue, I've now pressed this seam open. Thing looks fantastically lined up here, and this is the last bit until the blocks are completely done. So I will now, I line it up like that just to check I've got it the right way round, and I start again from this second seam. I don't start from the corner, I start from the second seam. Same process as before. Unfortunately, this one I accidentally sewed onto the incorrect block, so I had to unpick it. You'll know how much fun that was. So lined up, pinned. The next one, which is an intersection, which is slightly more difficult to see. I mean, that stitch line actually helps me a bit here, but I would guess it. So that's way off there. So I'll take this back out. I don't know if you're going to see, but I can see the line through again, the fabric. Push it in there. Pull it taut, and it works. Couple more pins. Check both sides. Slightly off on this side now and on that side. Don't know how I've done that. Maybe I've not pressed it. Yeah, so what I can see here, and you might find this, is I've kind of not pushed it over enough before I pressed it. It's not a huge problem, but it does mean that when I'm putting this through here, what I think is the corner, oh well, it is there now. Before it was coming through slightly further over. So that's what I was going to do, is just suggest that you push it over a bit for that section, and then it will all come out in the wash when you iron it. So I'm hoping to come through between these fabrics, which I look like I am, but I'm not. Now, is that on the line? It feels a bit high, but actually I think it will be okay. As you can see, I managed to rip this when I was taking the seams off. It's not the end of the world. I could have used some glue to hold it down, or basted it with stitches. So I'm going to do the same as before on this corner. The only thing is because I traced my template, I haven't actually got this corner. So I'm doing it a little bit by eye, in that I'm going to put that through. I'm going to look here. Now if I'm looking at this, it looks a little bit low and a little bit too far in for my liking. So I'm just going to adjust it slightly, put it up there. Feels decent. I'm going to double check along here again. It's slightly below, but that might be because this has moved up. I'm going to go with it. Last corner. Sorry, my chair is squeaking as well. Ooh, that seems off. Just making I've got the fabric lined up. Well, it doesn't line up exactly, but I'm sure it will work out. So now if I just turn the camera, I'll show you me sewing this. So you can see how I do it, starting off. So put it on the bed, hold this flat, take that first pin out. We'll take the second pin out but I'm holding it with pressure. Slide it under, lock stitch, one down this seam. So I've just finished sewing this. I'm going to open it up. Yeah, perfect. That one looks slightly off, but I think once it's ironed, it'll be fine. So I will now trim and remove these and press the seam open. I then won't do anything else. Now, so the reason I won't trim this block at all is that I like to leave it untrimmed, because I might have to sew into what you might think is the seam allowance, or what kind of is technically the seam allowance. Now, I don't know if you can see here, but I've lined this ruler up with this section here, and it's perfectly straight. This side, it goes in a touch here on the line, and then it kind of comes back out again. So the block slightly dishes. Now, I've never found this to be a problem, apart from when I've used the wovens and I did the block that was like 40 inches by 40 inches, so a metre each block. Each one of these was a metre. And that was with woven fabric, and in essence I was piecing it more than I was foundation paper piecing it. So it was a slight issue there, but it quilted out. And that's what happens with all of these, is they quilt out. But it does mean that you might want to go slightly further out or slightly further in, so you get these points matching. I'll talk more about that next week. Exciting! It's coming together!